This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the zoning hearing examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing, unless a party has submitted testimony or evidence in the form of writing prior to this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. The public will then have an opportunity to speak after the applicant has presented its case. In the event that any party testifies or offers argument in opposition to this application, the applicant shall have an opportunity to rebut that testimony and or argument that's been offered in opposition. And then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make any closing statements. So when I say, when I refer to the applicant there, basically anyone who is a part of this project or is speaking on behalf of it that's not a member of the public, you all can be a part of the applicant's presentation. So one or all of you can speak as to why you think this is appropriate and why I should grant these variance requests. Or however you want to orient it is completely up to you. I'll then go to the public and give the Ms. Goldenhar and Mr. Kane an opportunity to weigh in, provide any input. I'll give our zoning plans examiner, Doug Owen, an opportunity to give some input, and then go back to the applicants and allow them to respond to any of the comments from our zoning plans examiner or from the neighbors. And then any other closing statements you'd like to make. After all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. I may also refuse to consider hearsay testimony or documents. That's generally evidence you want to introduce that consists of statements made by someone who's not here and can't say them for themselves. In the event of any technical difficulties or unforeseen circumstances with the video conferencing technology, if there's a problem, we'll try and fix it and troubleshoot those issues on the fly. But to the extent there's some defect that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with the hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing. That'll be at my discretion. Okay, last thing I need to do is to swear in all of our witnesses. So if you intend on providing any testimony here today, making any comments, asking any questions, doing anything other than just strictly observing, then you need to be sworn in. So if that is you, if you could make sure that you're off mute, raise your right hand. I need everyone to answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
I do.
Okay, great. You are all now sworn. Who's going to be taking the lead here on the presentation of the applicant's case?
This is Bridget Harris. I can take the lead.
Okay, great. And Bridget, before you do that, I'm going to give our zoning plans examiner, Doug Owen, an opportunity real quick to make one point with the actual relief that's being requested. I think that there was a change based on a new development recently with a parking overlay that does not require as much relief. So Doug, do you want to shed some light on that before we get started?
Yeah, thanks, David. So basically their city council has recently passed an urban parking overlay that is overlaid over the Camp Washington business district and that general area. So after that was passed by council, our GIS system was not updated. So when I was initially reviewing this project, I identified the parking as being something that needed relief. However, someone from the Camp Washington Urban Redevelopment Corporation contacted me to let me know about the parking overlay. I did confirm with the planning department that that was active and that this particular property is within that overlay. So the special exception that was identified for the parking is not required as part of this work. There is no parking required for any new development in this district. So the density variance for the 4 extra units is the only relief that is needed.
Okay, thanks, Doug. All right, so I'll limit my review to just the numerical variance request for the density. Okay, Ms. Harris, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you for that. We would like to request a zoning variance for the proposed project at 2819 Colerain Avenue. In our letter dated September 28th, 2021, we stated that, or Douglas stated that previous building permit records indicated there were a total of 7 units previously in the building. We are looking to request a density variance to create 11 units in the building. All 11 units will fit within the footprint of the existing building. And so we no longer have to speak to the parking variance. Sorry about that. The proposed project is within the public interest per Cincinnati Municipal Code 14, because it is within the harmony of the general purposes and intent to the City of Cincinnati zoning code. This building has been unoccupied for a number of years, and it's our intent to renovate the building and provide housing for 11 individuals in the Camp Washington community. We believe that the project's additional units will not pose adverse effects on the neighborhood, and our intention is to renovate this multifamily building and remain harmonious with the neighborhood.
Okay. And while I won't be actually doing an analysis on any parking relief, if you did have any remarks on why, because I can consider it sort of as a supplemental potential adverse effect of granting the additional density.
Okay.
So if you had any remarks about parking in general and why that shouldn't be a concern in this area, feel free to share those.
Yeah, I do have some. Originally, we were asking for the parking variance, and the building is landlocked, making additional parking spaces for this, the additional 11 units impossible. There is street parking out front, but there's not enough space in the existing footprint to drive to the rear of the building.
Okay. So do you think there will be ample parking for the residents?
We believe that street parking is available there, but in keeping with the majority of the housing units that are on that street, most of them all provide street parking versus parking lots.
Okay. All right. Anything else right now?
Nope, that is all.
Okay. Would anyone else from the Excel team or Ms. Estridge like to add anything to Ms. Harris's testimony? Okay. Seeing no one, we'll move over to Ms. Goldenhar and Mr. Kane. What would you like to tell us today?
I think our concern is definitely with the parking issue. We have a small business in between. Excel has two properties there, 2815 and 2819. And between them, I think there was 18 units. And I don't believe either building now with the overlay would be required to have any parking. There are apartments down on the corner. There are apartments across the street. There are other apartments on the street. And right now the parking's very tight. I mean, there's a barber shop there that has cars there constantly, even though it's probably only a 400 square foot parking or 400 square foot building. They have continual parking in and out. And I guess I'm just a little concerned about down the road. We've talked to Excel and they don't really think there too many of their particular tenants are going to need cars, but maybe down the road the next owner might. And 18 units on that street, if only half of them had cars, would make it very difficult on the street. Right now there's some construction going on in the buildings, and there's a dumpster and a couple of other spaces have already been taken up. And just losing those three spaces, it's you notice a difference already. And I don't know what the parking overlay, I don't know where you go, because 2819 is landlocked. 2815, there is property behind. I don't think the owner's willing to sell, but I don't know what you do. There's just not going to be enough space on the street to deal with that many units, I don't think, if there are cars. That's our concern.
Okay.
We're not opposed to the project. I just think parking is going to be an issue.
Gotcha. Okay. And you mentioned 18 residences. Did I hear that correctly?
There is, I think, I'll let them say it, but I think there's 11 units in 2819 and 7 units in 2815. Is that right?
Mr. Cooley or Ms. Harris, can you clarify?
Yeah, that's correct. And so we own two properties on that block. And hi, Chris and Linda. Good to So, we own 2 properties on that block. One didn't require a variance, and that's why it's not the subject of discussion today. But the one with 11 units would make it 18 together. May I address a little bit further the concern that was brought up?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. No, Chris and I have talked, and that is a legitimate concern of what he is saying. And if I were in his shoes, I would ask the same questions. I would be here representing in the same way. But I did assure Chris, and I mean this, as far as property owners that will reduce the impact of parking on this street, you really won't find one better than Excel. And it's just because the people that we generally rent to don't have cars. So I can say that in all of our units, we may have 4 cars, and we have over 90 buildings throughout, about 90 buildings throughout Cincinnati. The reason we picked this place particularly is because it's on a bus line, and that's how our tenants tend to utilize or how they traverse the city. So the concern is legit. Is what if we sell the property? Well, I'm glad to report that in our 30-year history, I think we've sold 2 properties. And, and those were after we had owned them for years and years and years. And we decided to perhaps pull out of a neighborhood because, of very unique circumstances. With these, there's not a way in the world we're making the investment that we will in this and then sell it. Now, we could look at the converse. If someone else buys these properties, even if they don't ask for the variance, let's just say they go with 7 units and then go with 8 in the other building, most likely those tenants are going to want to have cars, right? So even if you get an owner that does just 7 units in one, 8 in the other, and they have 15 units and half of them have cars, that'll be far more cars on the street than Excel's tenants will have with us. So I think really we're in about the best shape we could be in for that community and parking.
Thanks, Mr. Cooley. Just a follow-up question on that. So is it that the socioeconomic demographic that your company typically rents to relies mostly on the bus?
Yeah, it's a socio-economic demographic. It's also our mission is to really help people that are overcoming, illness, really. And so a lot of them just don't have licenses because of that. And a lot of them just can't afford to. A lot of them don't have the income to have a car, to have insurance. Usually once they reach that level of success, they move out of our buildings. So we just don't have factually many cars in any of our buildings right now. We drive through empty lots when we see them.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Doug, anything you'd like to add to your staff report on this?
No, I think other than eliminating the parking variance, basically what we're talking about here is just the density for 4 additional units above what was most recently in the building. So I would just reiterate from the staff report that we feel that this is a characteristic that is consistent with the neighborhood. While there is a high rate of vacancy currently, most of these buildings were previously occupied by a higher density than would be currently permitted. Some buildings that I was able to find current building permits for also exceed the density. They're mostly legal non-conforming, meaning they were basically grandfathered in after the zoning code went into effect in 2004. So the urban mixed district is intended to be a dense urban district in walkable areas, which would lessen the impact of the vehicles. So in short, we are supportive of the density variance.
Okay. All right. Anything else from anyone on the applicant side in response to anything that Doug Owen has said or Mr. Kane has said? Okay. Anything else in closing or otherwise from the applicants? Okay. Great. We'll leave it at that then. I want to thank everyone for their time and their testimony here today. I don't have any further questions. So how this works is I'll review the testimony here today. I have to do a site visit where I'll sort of drive by or walk, whatever makes the most sense, and then review the full application packet, and then type out a written decision of whether to approve or deny the request. So that usually takes about 2 weeks. I will, as soon as I finish that, I put it into a PDF and then I email it to everyone who's in the hearing today. And so you all will have it just moments after it's complete. If you have any questions in between now and then, or if you would just like a status update on the decision, feel free to reach out to me. My email is on the screen. Or if you can't get a hold of me, feel free to reach out to Doug Owen as well. But yeah, are there any other questions right now before we adjourn? Okay, well, thank you all again for being here. I appreciate it. And hope you have a wonderful day. We are adjourned.